Time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic Do. I'm Daniel Dubois,
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
and we're your guides on your journey to the heart of the primordial. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 4. You know where we're going.
I'm always interested to hear what the title is going to be because I know you don't know it until you say it,
Right? Because I definitely
which
explained
is
last week.
it's a fun place to be.
Mm.
So I'm going to kick off today reading someone else's post. Now it's the first time I'm doing that on any podcast, and I don't know if it'll be the last, but this is worthy because where we are in many calendars and what we've got coming next, which is the year of the fire horse. So let me read this. This is Chinese zodiac astrology, which has been going for a very, very long time. And it often meets with the Gregorian calendar in a way that makes sense. Let me just read it to you because I believe this is going to spark a whole lot of interesting conversation and maybe for the listener as well. So here we go. This is by someone called Debbie Edwards, and you can find her on Facebook. I recommend you follow if you're interested in what I'm saying. The year 2026 marks the return of the fire horse in Chinese zodiac astrology, an energetic combination that has long been associated with movement, intensity, and decisive change. Even outside of myth or mysticism, the symbolism of the fire horse is fairly straightforward and powerful. It represents a year where momentum increases, where people feel a stronger urge to act, and where life tends to move faster than usual. I'm just going to interject here. If you think 2025 was a lot, buckle up, buttercup. Back to the post. In Chinese astrology, the horse is a symbol of independence, travel, vitality, and personal drive. It is associated with motion, confidence, and the desire for freedom. The horse does not like to be constrained, whether by routine, authority, or outdated expectations. When the element of fire is added, that desire becomes more urgent and visible. Fire represents passion, clarity, courage, and expression. It brings things into the open and tends to speed up whatever it touches. Together, fire and horse create a year that emphasizes action, self-determination, and bold choices. Astrologically, fire horse years often correlate with periods of social acceleration and personal turning points. People tend to feel less patient with situations that feel stagnant or misaligned. There's often a collective sense that something has to change, even if the exact direction is not immediately clear. This is not a year that favors playing small or staying comfortable simply for the sake of stability. The firehorse energy encourages risk, movement, and initiative, sometimes before all the details are fully worked out. Looking back at previous firehorse years helps to give context to what this energy can bring, not only in terms of disruption, but also in terms of lasting progress. The most recent firehorse year before 2026 was 1966, a time often remembered for upheaval, but it was also a year that catalyzed profound and necessary transformations. Beneath the unrest of the era were breakthroughs that reshaped society in enduring ways. Civil rights legislation gained momentum and visibility. Youth culture began redefining values around freedom, equality, and self-expression. And rigid social hierarchies were challenged in ways that permanently altered the collective trajectory. Artistic innovation flourished, music and literature became vehicles for truth-telling, and new forms of identity and community began to take shape. Many of the freedoms and cultural shifts that later generations would take for granted were seeded during this volatile but fertile time. Do note the words I'm saying here because there's a lot. Okay. We're about halfway through, so hang with me. Firehorse years tend to act as accelerants for changes that are already overdue. They bring buried truths to the surface and force conversations that can no longer be postponed. While this process can feel chaotic in the moment, it often results in greater authenticity, expanded rights, and the breaking of cycles that have long restricted growth. Historically, periods associated with Firehorse energy have coincided with leaps in creative expression, technological curiosity, and the courage to imagine alternatives to the status quo. What begins as tension frequently matures into reform, innovation, and renewed vitality. On a personal level, Firehorse years often highlight themes of autonomy and direction. Many people feel called to change careers, relocate, end relationships that limit their growth, or finally pursue goals they've postponed. While the restlessness of this energy can be uncomfortable, it is rarely meaningless. It tends to arise when the soul senses that it has outgrown its current container. In positive expressions, Firehorse years empower individuals to claim leadership over their own lives, to trust their instincts, and to move towards paths that feel more alive and self-directed. There's also a confidence that can emerge during Firehorse years, a sense of remembering one's inner strength. People often discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed, simply because circumstances demand courage and adaptability. Obstacles that once felt immovable may suddenly dissolve, not because conditions are perfect, but because the will to move forward becomes stronger than the fear of change. I'm going to repeat that sentence. Obstacles that once felt immovable may suddenly dissolve, not because conditions are perfect, but because the will to move forward becomes stronger than the fear of change. Finally, spiritually and psychologically, 2026 is likely to feel like a year of initiation through experience rather than reflection alone. Lessons tend to come through real-world choices and lived consequences. Clarity arrives often after action, not before it. While this can challenge those who prefer certainty, it can also be deeply empowering. The Firehorse teaches discernment through movement and wisdom through engagement. It rewards sincerity, self-honesty, and the willingness to take responsibility for one's direction. And that, my friends, is a long but I think important post because it encompasses a lot of the work we've been doing, a lot of the things we've been saying, and it really is a sort of readiness to jump into what's coming next because typically at the end of a year we say, oh man, that was such a tough year. I hope next year's better. That's not how to look at this coming year.
Right.
I think the approach is, well, I survived last year. I may have done even better than survive. Some, dare I say, thrive, but that was preparation for 2026. What we've got coming was bigger than what we've just been through. So if you need to lie down and take a minute, hit pause and then come back because we've got a lot coming up. We've been telling you this, but everything is converging now to show this. So this is where we're at.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like listening to you read that, it's like, yeah, this is like completely in tune, in flow. It's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of things coming together at this period of time, right? In the standard use calendar, right? Year 9, right now, 2025, meaning old cycles are coming to an end. And I would argue what you're probably feeling that makes you feel bad at the end of the year is you're probably feeling the destruction of old things making way for new things. And you're just not used to that concept. Or you're not used to working with that yet. So now is the time to get used to that.
We also do an interesting trick. We play an interesting trick on ourselves when it comes to time and looking back, which is we typically look back at the year that just happened with a sense of, holy cow, that was a lot. And, could it be easier next year, please? That was too much. And let's not do that again. And yet, if we look back to something further away, like 5 years, 10 years, or longer, given
Right.
certain people in the current political landscape like to look back to the 50s and 60s. Some go back to the 30s, but I'll leave that
Mm.
alone for now. So when you look back, the further back you look, the more distorted the view is, and the more pleasant it seems to be, the more in line with what you think is good, the further back you go. But the year before, whatever year we're in, we always look at it and say, oh man, that was terrible. Like I remember writing posts at the end of 2016 and saying how terrible it was because David Bowie had died and a few other things
Hmm.
had happened, and I was very upset about that. And I look at that now and I'm like, wow, man, I had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
That was, whew, yeah, we've had a lot more since then. So for people who are getting ready to write their reflective posts on how tough 2025 was, I suggest you give that one a pass for this year and maybe start looking forward to how are you going to prepare yourself
Yeah.
for the coming year and make it good. Like this is we have destruction happening. Our role is to step in with the creation part of things. So
Right.
what are you going to do?
Yeah. It's interesting because I'll say this, right? I was actually looking forward to 2026 because of everything happening in 2025, like all the work we were doing, me and Makayla, right? It's like, oh, we're building all this stuff, right? We've taken down what was old and we've brought in new things to the world and we've opened up things. And it's like, wow, I wonder what next year is going to bring because of everything we've opened up, right? I want to see what comes from this work.
Mhm.
I've been excited for 2026.
And that's good because
Yeah.
you have choices, right? You can be
Right.
terrified of 2026. And for some people, rightly so, because your choices will set that up for you. And for others, it's exciting. And for others, it's uncertain. But the point is, it's going to be big. It's going to be a lot. And are you riding the wave or are you getting crushed under it? And we've been saying this, building on this for a year now and more. Um, but yeah, rather than looking back, I suggest the listener doesn't spend time on that. Look forward. Where are we going? Because this could be your most epic year yet. But
Yes.
it's not going to be easy. It's going to be epic.
Yes.
Easy's overrated.
Yeah. There's a
Easy
lot
means
of,
there's no challenges. And we got challenges. That's a fact.
yeah. In fact, I'd almost challenge people to spend this year trying to do it from the perspective of you're going to grow, you're going to acquire wisdom, who you are is going to improve, especially for those of you in the magical sense, your practice is going to grow, your connection is going to grow. So I'd almost challenge you to see that this year. Yeah, there's going to be things that are going to change, and there's things that you're going to wish didn't change, but you'll see why they changed later. That's probably one of the bigger parts of it. Was probably something for some of you you've experienced in 2025. You were seeing things going away, and then you may have been upset, but then maybe you've probably started to see, oh, now I see why that went away and
Right.
why I'm moving to this new thing.
And sometimes I think when things go away, you can change how you hold them. So I'm thinking of loss. For example, I've had loss very
Mm.
recently, and I've had loss in the last couple of years, but I can hold what comes from that in a way that the path in front of me is clearer because I don't have to worry about those things. I don't expect that to necessarily make sense to everybody, but it just means that you might not know now how you can handle that, but you'll know. You'll find a way and you will see why why it's a place of growth.
Right. So another interesting thing, no, I didn't read completely in that. So this is a turtle. I don't remember the stone it's made from, but it's a turtle.
Looks like tiger's eye.
It might be. And it's a turtle with octopus carved into to its shell. It's a tiger eye stone. But the reason I grabbed it is because while Mikhail was reading her story, it felt like I was going to start floating around the room. So, so I needed something to anchor myself, and this one volunteered.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of symbolism there. The turtle and the octopus. They're not normally together, but there's lots of deep symbolism. Actually, I invite the listener to consider the symbolism that's around right now, that's in your immediate environment and your wider environment, and what do you get from it? Don't ignore it. And you don't have to interpret it according to somebody else's rules, but just pay deeper attention to what's around you and what does it hold for you, because you may find some direction there.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing when you were reading, one of the things I was reminded of is the changing of stories. And I know we've talked about changing stories a bunch of times this year already, but it's still here. Like even for myself, I've done a lot of changing of my stories, and even like I said, I had that moment there where I was in the void and I was supposed to keep going into these spheres and working with whatever the spirit was in there, and then I kind of got the old switcheroo, and Jesus was in one of them. But that was a reminder of even I hold certain stories and prejudice towards certain stories. But I decided in the end, right? Well, if I'm saying I'm open to anyone that comes, then I got to be open, right? So, but this is an opportunity when you encounter a spirit that you don't like or don't think you want to work with, but you still feel the sense of working with them. Check out the story, see why you didn't like the story. If you want to do an investigation as to why you think the story wasn't right or if it was changed or whatever, there's a point to this in there. I think it's because people are gonna like we've suggested that people pick a spirit and work with them, whoever it is, right? Or so a lot of people are gonna go back with what they know. So as
Right.
much as Michaela and I don't ourselves recommend religion, if that's what you got, remember it's a story. That's what I'm gonna say. Go back to whatever you want, but remember it's a story. And that story may not exist 5,000 years from now. That spirit will exist 5,000 years from now, but that story won't. And there'll be a whole new story around the metaphor of that spirit. So don't go in as it as a religion if you go back to what you were used to. Go in with the understanding it's a story.
And I would recommend before you go through that door again, metaphorically or literally,
Right.
before you go in there, have a look at how many strings there are to tie you, how many
Right.
places there are where that religion would hold you down. Now, I'm not saying you can't enter it on your own terms, but you need to be able to see what the traps are, what the things are that are there to snare you, to hold on to you and keep you there. And if you want to be there voluntarily, that's absolutely one thing, and 100% go for it, knock yourself out. But beware the traps that are set, because historically, religions don't like to let go of people and they like to make sure that you toe the line. So have a look at what's the line and why do they want you to toe it? Why do they want you to stay there? What's the benefit? What's the gain? I've seen some limited quantities because I don't have much stomach for it, but I've seen some footage recently of Turning Point USA and
Mm.
megachurch stuff, and it makes Cirque du Soleil look tame. They've got acrobats, they've
Mm.
got fireworks shooting off, they've got millions of dollars worth of stuff happening in that environment. And all of it is to emotionally charge everybody that's there to carry whatever the message is that you're about to be given. And the message from the bits that I've seen is not a very positive one. It's a very limiting sort of, we're right, everybody else is wrong, rah rah, let's all agree. And by the way, the donation box is large and bottomless.
Mm.
But these mega churches get their money from somewhere and then they don't pay taxes. So they're not actually giving to the poor in any way. And they're not giving to the country they're based in any way. But boy, they are powerful.
Mm.
So that's an extreme version of walking into a religion and getting snared. But if you look at that and then scale it down, what's your local place doing? Because they have a version of it. They all do.
Right.
Beware of that as you walk in. If you're going to walk
Yeah.
amongst the lions, then at least don't wear a suit of lamb.
Yeah.
Like go in
Yeah.
there with open eyes.
Right. And I also want to be clear. This isn't just like, I'm not just talking about people who worship God and who worship Jesus. You have to look at it, right? Because there's Wicca and there's, like I said, I belong to a bunch of different groups to get an idea of what's going on. And the Hecate group I belong to, while it's not everyone, there are still enough people who treat it like a religion.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. And you can see it in the advice and you can see it in the responses. And it's like, I don't want you to go there.
Right. We have a tendency as human beings to want the common agreement and the rules that keep everybody following the common agreement, right? I've seen it in certain Lilith groups. I'm in numerous Lilith
Right.
groups, and one or two of them, I just look at them a little removed because I'm so curious about the fervor with which they will tell you how it is and how it has to be. And if you're not doing it that way, you're doing it wrong. And it's fascinating to me that you took out one set of rules and immediately replaced it with another. And this is our human tendency to do this. So staying outside of those rules, it literally is caveat emptor. Like, be careful when you're walking into any situation where there's people other than you in it. There's going to be rules that somebody somewhere is going to want to impose. It helps them to feel a sense of groundedness, certainty, correctness, right? Like, I must be
Right.
right because these are the rules. And what Danielle and I have been
Mm.
saying is this is inaccurate. It's not true. To the best of our knowledge, anyway, it's not
Mhm.
true. There are no rules. So wherever you come across them, can you cut that string?
Right.
Can you do a
Your
cord cutting and
relationship.
let it go?
Yeah. Because your relationship is your relationship with that spirit, right? Like I've talked about amusingly on the podcast, right? My experience with Baba Yaga is probably no one else's experience with Baba Yaga.
Right. And we get stories, and if you take them as this story tells me what's coming, okay, then chances are it does. But what are you missing? Because you didn't look. You just
Right.
went with the story. But if somebody made that story, their version of storytelling isn't better than yours. So make your own.
Yeah. And it's funny, right? To give you an example, since we're in the middle of the holiday season, for those of you who are familiar with, well, if you look at the different names for Santa Claus, right, that are used, Kris Kringle being one of them. Well, for those of you who know Kris Kringle is, the only association with Santa Claus is the gift giving around Christmas time. But Kris Kringle is actually a female, but is the representation of Jesus. So is essentially a female Jesus who gives gifts at Christmas time.
Personally,
I
I
think it's
kind of find
finished.
the Krampus parades
Yeah.
to be fun, but I would. Um, but it's all storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And then you get people coming out making loud noises about you have to say Merry
Hmm.
Christmas. If you don't say that, then you fit into this category, and that's not a bad, that's a bad group.
Yeah.
Wow. People, how petty are we getting at this point? How futile is that to pour your energy into it? Does it matter? Do you
Yeah.
actually give a shit? And if you do, why? Have a look at that. Why is it important to say Merry Christmas? Why is it important if somebody says Happy Holidays? Why is any of that important? It's not. Like, unless you
Right.
invest in it. But that's a really lame place to put your energy, in my opinion. Just
Yeah.
could you put it somewhere else? Really? Find something a
Yeah.
little more worthy than what name you're going to use?
Yeah. So, and since if I remember this correctly, right, the title I gave for the episode is "You Know Where You're Going." So we're not telling you where to go. You already know. We're just helping you along the way. We're just offering tidbits for you to look at. We're
My,
your
my big
your tour
thing,
guides. Yeah.
my big thing for today is
Mhm.
I would like the listener to understand that you don't need a permission slip. You don't need anybody's approval, and you don't need to check in with
Right.
anyone. Just check in with yourself, with whatever spirit or spirits you're working with. Really sort of pay attention to your own awareness, your own knowing. Don't outsource it. Things don't work so
Well,
well when they're outsourced, right? It's yours and you own it. So if you do something that isn't doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to,
mm,
maybe you totally screw up on something, or it's bigger than you ever imagined. Like however that turns out, it's yours. It's your responsibility. Not That's not the same as blame, but
right.
it's your place to take action from. So really own it. 2026 is the year of owning it, not outsourcing. Just cut the crap. There's no excuses. There's no, this is somebody else's fault. This other person
Mm.
did this. That person did that. Nope, 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 nope. We're not doing that. 2026 does not have space for that. So get ready to own it. If you're not already, now's your time.
Yeah. Actually, owning it is very important. Yeah. The reason you know where you're going is because these decisions are going to be yours to make. Yes, there's going to be influence from the floor around you. There's things to be done, but that's just regular. That's just part of living in this world. It's not a blame situation. It's just you have a body, you need to drink. You drank, you need to pee. That's existence. So
Right.
there's those
And,
things.
we also choose influence a lot, what influences us, what we allow to influence. So when
Right.
I'm doing human design with someone with an open crown, I will immediately point out, be careful what you allow in your environment, curate it. Listen to podcasts that you feel are going to uplift or direct in a way that you want to go. You have a choice. Don't listen to the stuff that's going to pull you down, misdirect, or otherwise get in your way. Read things that are going to lift you up, not pull you down. It's not sticking your head in the sand, it's curating what influences you, because that's if it's taking you in the direction you want to go, then you're curating your environment correctly. Things will influence you, but the ultimate decision, the ultimate responsibility for what you do with that is yours. I don't care if you've got an open crown or a closed, it is yours.
Yeah. It's funny. So what I'm being asked to add is that like the reason I mentioned going back to religion is because a lot of people are going to be scared to go back to religion.
Mm.
And I'm not going to stop you because you're going to get whatever you need from that. Like I said, right? I had a period where I went back to watching religious TV because no one had called me an asshole for a while and said how terrible and imperfect I am. I did it, and then that got it out of the way. That purged that need, if you want to call it a need. And then it was gone, and I've never felt that way since. And I even think back, I'm like, why would I need that? But a part of me was missing something, and then I thought that was it, and now I know it's not that. So if you have to step back in 2026 and do that, step back. I don't want to put any judgments on it. If that's where you need to move forward, you do that. If it helps you find your way, then let it help you find your way. Don't judge yourself. Don't kick yourself. Go in there, do what you need to do, get what you need to get.
Be sure you
It's
know the way out.
right. But it's funny, right? Because now more than ever, no judgment. 2026 is also a year of no judgment as far as telling
I,
you what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing.
ideally, it's very interesting when we see people's um, stories come out in their reactions. So
Mm,
I'm about to tell you something that I haven't told Danielle yet.
mm.
So this is a new piece of
All right.
information. But it's not magical, it's mundane, but it also brought out reactions for the few people that I've told so far.
Mm-hmm.
So I've mentioned previously that my soulmate dog, my soul dog, George,
Right.
died. And that has been so hard. And he is very much in my heart. I feel him every time I say his name.
Mm,
And so there is no replacing George. There's no thought of trying. There's no point. There's no need. He was everything complete. So, given that, we're now adopting two puppies, not one but
mm.
two, that were found in a trash facility in Puerto Rico.
Oh,
And they are being flown to the airport here, and we will go and get them from the airport. I think they're called Angels of Life, the people who fly them for
right.
free. So we're getting them, and they'll arrive on January 4th. And the thing is, I've only told a few people, but the reactions were fascinating because I immediately got a big judgment from one person of, oh, you can't do that. It's too soon. You shouldn't be replacing da 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 da. There was so much assumption there that we were replacing our lost dog, our lost companion.
Mm,
And that's exactly inaccurate. It's not true at all. We
right.
have four dogs left. We had five, now we have four, and they are rudderless. They don't know what to do. Their reason for everything they did is not here, and they're lost.
Mm,
And we're taking these two little beings from the trash heap, literally. We're going to give them the best lives that we can, and they are going to give the other dogs purpose. They are going to give them a new look at life, if you will. So a lot of us are benefiting from that. That's my perspective. But the reactions I've been getting, not one person has stopped to say, oh, why are you doing that? Or, tell me the story behind that. Nobody. Everybody thinks they know what's happening and they have a judgment about that. And it's been
right.
so interesting to watch the judgment. And it's like, no, these cute little beasties needed somewhere to go, and we have room. And we have dogs that need something to do, something to give them a purpose. And
Right.
these two little beasties are going to do that.
Yeah. No, a few weeks ago when I was feeling really drained, I just said, "What the hell's wrong with you?" But actually, your explanation is pretty awesome. So, and also this time out when you said it, because I'm not feeling drained, it's like, oh yeah, no, I can see it.
Mhm.
But like I said, a few weeks ago when I was feeling really drained, I'd have been like, "What's wrong with you? Take a break."
Right? But
Yeah,
no, there's no need to take a break. Like we're thrilled to have them.
right.
It's
Because I would have been exhausted for you,
right. And the
but that would
thing
have been
is,
me.
George
Yeah,
George is very safely in my heart, and
right,
he isn't going anywhere. I say his name and I feel him. He's not going anywhere. And absolutely not to replace him. No, 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 no. It's almost a different species, what we're looking at.
right,
But the assumptions were very quick. And I don't think anybody that said their piece thought they were being judgmental, but they all were,
mhm,
which was interesting. So catch yourself. Where are you jumping into that? Because we all do it, right? That's human nature. But
yeah,
the whole thing here is catch yourself sometimes.
yeah. I'll use the words I usually use with people. Help has to be helpful. So if you're going to help, be helpful.
Right.
Don't let your help be an extra burden.
Yeah. And if somebody's telling you something like, hey, I'm joining this religion,
Mm,
I would have a lot of questions. I would really have a lot of questions because I would want to feel that that person knew what they were walking into and why. I just want to know they have clarity. It's not really my business for that, but I would do it anyway, right? Because I just want to
Well,
know, like, you do know why you're doing it. Okay, good.
yeah. Well, and that's being helpful. You're not putting a judgment, you're just asking the person certain questions you hope they've asked themselves.
Right. And if they haven't, please do. Just check in. Are you sure that's what you want to do?
Because I found myself in the last decade or so, that's what I'm like, I ask people those when they say something to me, and I'm like, and then I see when they get upset, like, I'm not judging you. I'm just, for myself, I'm just want to see that you've gone through the steps that I think people should be using before they decide anything. And so that's my attempt to help you, not to judge you. So I don't want you to feel judged by what I'm saying. Because you
Hmm.
get used to the idea and you know what you intend, but the other person may not necessarily know it. Or you might hit
Right.
triggers.
And the key there, I think, is to check in with,
Yeah.
okay, this is coming up for me. I need to ask some questions. And I can totally see why people would leap to the conclusion that
Yeah.
some have leapt to. Not that I've told that many people, but there's been pushback already.
Right.
And I can see why that would be. But if they asked a couple of questions, or just waited long enough to hear the rationale, then they wouldn't have to be so concerned.
Well, you see, and this I'm going to share because your rationale makes sense to me and it gave me a new perspective on things. So, and this is actually kind of why I do it with people. And and a lot of times I'll start off with, this isn't about judgment, but I have some questions, you know? And part of those questions is like, because maybe I can be of service to you later in what you're doing. So if I understand this now while you're doing your thing, I'll understand it and I'll be ready if you have questions or if there's something you need help with later. So I kind of don't just do it for the person, I do it for myself too. But one of the benefits to me I find is learning new things and new perspectives or new ways of looking at a thing before that I didn't do before. So being helpful is not just to be helpful for someone else, it can enrich you at the same time doing it.
Oh, yeah. Asking those questions gives you a new perspective yourself because they might come back with something completely unexpected.
Right.
And you may have to process some of that. Like, when I say there's absolutely no question of ever trying to replace George, I get, sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a disbelief there, but no, I know what I'm talking about. I'm very, very certain about that. This is
Right.
not, there's no, I can't imagine even trying. Like, there's no point. That's, no, he had a purpose, he had a role, and he's still with us in that way. These dogs are completely different, right? Like it's not the same thing, but it's triggering for somebody who thinks it is.
Yeah.
It's triggering for somebody who has very, you know, certain ideas about how long you should wait for something or how it needs to look or what it means when you take a certain action. You must be replacing. No, 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 no. That's not on the agenda at all.
Just because my brain goes there. So where did you get them from? Where are you getting them from again?
They were found in a trash facility in Puerto Rico.
Okay. Part of my brain went, oh, so you're gonna have to learn Spanish to be able to tell them what to do. It
Oh,
made me
that's so
think
funny.
from the Eddie Murphy version of Dr. Doolittle. They're
Uh-huh.
bringing him in to talk to an orangutan, but they got the orangutan from South America. So when he was trying to talk to it, the orangutan just looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" Because it, for lack of a better way of putting it, it thought in Spanish, and
Uh-huh.
he and he was coming across in English, so they couldn't communicate. So there was a limit to his ability to speak to animals in terms of the language they grew up around, the human language they grew up around. Anyways, it
Well,
came to mind, and it was just yeah,
these little beasts are 7 weeks old right now. They don't
right,
have language.
yeah.
And that's awfully young, yes. But their circumstances were such that this is how they survive. So we're going to have them real young.
Yeah.
and they'll be fine.
Yeah. Part of me is just amused that I went there, even though I know that doesn't make sense.
Oh, we immediately went to, shall we come up with some Spanish names?
Right.
And we may. I don't know yet. But it's funny because yeah, your mind does go there.
Yeah.
The trick is to realizing it's not true. It's just an amusing conclusion that you could leap to. Because here's a nice point, actually. What you
Right.
said about speaking to the animal in Spanish
Hmm.
is logical. It's not accurate, but it is logical.
Right.
And this is people often think logic is correct because it's logic, right?
Well,
You
if
have
they
to
were older,
follow a logical
yeah.
path.
But if they were older
Logic,
dogs, right, they would be used to hearing commands and stuff in Spanish. So it would still
it
be a
would.
new adaptation to hear them in English.
It would. It
Yeah.
would. But you gave me a nice example, so I had to use it
Mm.
of
Right.
where just because it's logical doesn't mean it's accurate,
Right.
right? And I love to point that out to people because we often think that, oh, it's logical, therefore that's what I should do. When we make decisions
Right.
from the head instead of from wherever your emotional authority is, if you make decisions from your head, then it's probably going to be logical. And you might end up learning Spanish so you can talk to your puppy.
Well, it's an
Uh,
opportunity, anyways.
yeah, sure. It's kind of fun. Let me see if I can find some Spanish puppy food. They
Yeah.
put habanero in there or something.
Hmm.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. That would be something. There's still more to this. I'm having
Oh,
not
I'm
a
sure
flow
there is.
obstruction, but I'm having a sidestep from the flow for some reason. I know like my third eye is very busy right now.
Is what's there to do with the story about the dogs or something else?
No, no, it has to
Something
do with
else.
something else. Yeah.
Logic?
No, no, no. It
Religion?
has to do. It has to do with what I told you. Well, actually, there you go. Is your segue. So before we recorded, I was telling Michaela about how. Well, I'll go the long part of the long way. For those of you who remember, right, I had a trickster teacher, and part of the way I was learning to do things was doing things for other people, being connected to other people, and seeking them out. And I had said, now it's not like that anymore. Now people have to come to me. I'm not chasing them anymore. Well, I also got a first taste of the full on. I'm a partner in the process, and I was involved in the actual process of making the connection. Normally, the spirits might the ones I work with, the ones the other person works with, and they would do the connections. But I was involved in this one, and I had placed a condition on the other person has to be aware that like so I mean consciously, not just oh it's happening, and they gave like the subconscious, the soul contract kind of a thing. They had to be consciously aware because I wasn't going to walk in, and go through all that stuff of being the messenger, right? That people wanted to shoot. I wasn't doing that again. The person had to be consciously aware and consensual to the connection this time out. But that's why I'm sidestepped from the flow because I'm still processing that. But that
Right.
person is still needs the benefit of this episode. So I think the reason I'm partially sidestepped from it is because I'm also processing it and sending it at the same time while we're doing the episode. That's my
Right.
impression.
Physically, you moved to the side as well.
Yeah.
I saw you do that.
Hmm.
So just as the listener cannot see you doing that. Yeah, that's something we've mentioned periodically that when you're doing something, whether it's spiritual, magical, whatever work you're doing, if somebody else is involved, you need to have them aware and
Hmm.
agree in agreement, right? Like doing something to someone or about someone without their consent is problematic, and it can lead to repercussions that you might not anticipate. This isn't a rule this is a natural consequence, right?
Right.
If somebody surprises you with something and you don't happen to like the surprise, or you're in a different space from where they thought
Hmm.
you were, it doesn't go over well in the
Yep.
mundane world. So if you're doing something on a spiritual level, um, that can cause problems. So for the listener, if you're involving somebody else, I recommend you check in with them and make sure that this is okay and that they understand what you're doing before you start the doing. That's
Right.
kind of important.
And that's one of the things that wanted to come up in this episode was because we said it, I think, last episode and probably even touched on the episode before. You can end up being knowing someone before you meet them in the physical world, and then you know them, and then when you meet them, you have this advantage of having already had the spiritual information before you get to them, but they're not going to view it that way if they're not connected enough or they're not in tune with the flow enough. To them, you're just a stranger who's being overbearing or a little too familiar.
And maybe creepy,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like
creepy.
we got to watch out for that because there's so much of that out there. You don't want to be mistaken for somebody who's, yeah, got ideas in mind that are unsavory in some way. So
Hmm.
just these are all natural cautions that it's good to do
Yeah.
physically or spiritually. You want to be sure that you're not overstepping and treading on somebody's toes when they have no idea you're there. That's
Right. And
an
be clear what
important
your
thing to
connection
do.
is too. Yeah, and be clear what
Mm.
your connection is too. Because when you're in tune with the flow, you're spiritually aware, magically aware, you're going to be connected to a person in a way that people usually don't romanticize. Like, oh, I'm so in love because we have this connection. This person knows what I'm going to want to do. They can anticipate. And it's like, yeah, but that's part of being connected on a spiritual level. But there's not necessarily that romantic or that kind of connection. You're just aware, you know?
Yeah,
You have that connection
yeah,
that are usually native to you is that connection that people usually only have when there's a deep emotional bond and an openness to be connected to the other person. And you have that as because it's Tuesday, you know?
right. And sometimes, in personal experience, the bond can be much deeper and more significant on a spiritual level than it ever is on an emotional level,
Right.
which is kind of it's an interesting place to be because you can enjoy the knowledge and understanding through that level of connection without it getting clouded with emotional stuff. And
Right.
that can be so cool. I think I've mentioned my friend in New Zealand before now, who
Mm-hmm.
is we go back years and years and years, and we have been living parallel lives since we arrived on the planet. We're always doing similar things in completely different locations. Sometimes we can be as close as next door to each other. That's happened as well. And then we go other sides of the planet, and and we're both always moving, and it doesn't matter where we are. There will be a point where one of us will contact the other one and say, "Okay, what's going on? What's happening with you? I'm picking something up." And we're right. And I've messaged her at like 4 in the morning and said, for crying out loud, would you go to sleep, please? I need my
Yeah.
sleep. And she's got something going on that's causing a problem. It's causing a disturbance. And so, I'm awake too. And we have that level of connection, but there's no emotional clouding of anything. The connection is very strong, but it's not emotional, which is
Right.
very cool. It's very enjoyable to have that
Right.
level.
So, and that's an example, right, of what would be known as a twin flame, which people misconstrue for a romantic. I mean, hey, I've done it myself. I made that same mistake myself. I had a twin flame. She passed now. So, but because male and female, straight, there was that conflation. But now I know in retrospect it wasn't that. But it's not meant to be a romantic link. That's completely different. This is just two people on parallel journeys who every once in a
Mhm.
while reconnect and swap stories and see where we are. What can I do for you? What can you do for me? Right? How can we help each other? But that's what it is. It's not a
Uh-huh.
romantic connection. You theoretically could, but it's not its intention.
I think it's often if somebody's aware
Yeah.
of such connection existing, that it might be in a novel where it's written in a romantic
Right.
way, and people tend to think, oh, that must be what it is. But not in my experience.
Right.
And I
Because
think if it was emotional, it would get very cloudy and it wouldn't
right.
be, there'd be a level of fraughtness about it that simply isn't necessary. Like, I'm really happy not to have that. Thanks. That's, don't need it. It's much better
Right.
to have someone you can check in with and say, okay, you know what? I got this thing going on. Like you and I will often do that where
Right.
there's something and I'll
Hmm.
check in and you'll say, oh, okay, yeah, there's this. And we have that level of connection.
Yeah.
It's not as long standing as my friend
Right.
in New
Well,
Zealand,
yeah.
which goes back many years. But
Hmm.
again, time isn't important there either. It's just
No.
you either get on that wavelength or not. Um,
Right.
and that's, people listening, somebody that's listening has a connection like that and they're not recognizing it for what it is, which is a pity because you could get some very rich information from that connection that you pass back and forth. Sometimes you have the missing piece for the other person, or they have it for you. And
Right.
when you connect, you get that exchange, and it's like both of you leave with, good, I needed that. Now I've got this thing to look forward to, or that makes sense out of something I was experiencing, and yeah, it's kind of a richness to have that. So if
Right.
you if
And
you've got it and you're not looking at it, suggest you pay attention.
right. And it's important because those of you starting off now, who especially the targeted audience for the podcast, you're going to be in an advisory teaching position. You're going to have a similar connection. Like when I started teaching this kind of stuff, I knew exactly what was going on with my students. I'd get like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late." I'm like, "Oh, I knew you were going to be late. You didn't, you didn't really. I thank you for the courtesy of calling me, but I already knew you weren't going to be here on the time you said you were going to be here. I already had it. I already knew. I had that information, you know. And so don't misconstrue that information. Now, there might like how to put that. Having that connection doesn't automatically mean that you'll never have a emotional connection like that. Just be aware that that's not all the time. That's just
It doesn't have to be
when
there.
that's a thing.
Yeah, it
I'm
it
losing my
doesn't
wording on
have
that
to be
one.
there.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you've got that kind of connection, it
Mhm.
can be a lot of, well, okay, I'm going to use the word fun because I find it fun.
Okay.
It can be a
All right.
lot of fun to really pay attention to what am I receiving? What am I feeling right now? And then if you think it's connected to the other person, check in with them because the more you do that, the more you'll be able to do that. The more
Right.
you'll fine tune that connection and recognize the signals. And that's another path to opening up to possibilities and, figuring out how you want to do your work, how you want to do what you came here to do.
Right.
So it's a great place, and I would say, generally speaking, from thinking anyway, it's a safe place to play with that and to just sort of, I'm feeling like something's going on with you. Are you worried about something? Are you
Mhm.
disturbed about something? And maybe they are. And if they say, no, no, I'm good. Well, okay, maybe it wasn't that.
Mhm.
Maybe somebody else is the person you're picking up on. Or maybe
Right.
it just, it's a red herring. It's not a big deal. Any of those
Yeah.
things can be
Well,
true, but consider it, play with it, see what you got.
yeah. I mean, part of our work during this year was that we made communication easier on a spiritual level. So
Yeah, play with it,
you're going to
practice it.
find more of those moments anyways.
Yeah. but recognizing them, because I think
Yeah.
we miss a lot of what is really readily available. It's,
Hmm.
leaping momentarily to quantum mechanics and quantum physics, the field of possibilities, infinite possibilities,
Right.
is a concept that, some would say it's proven, whatever, I'm not going to spend time on that. But the idea that there are infinite possibilities and it's realized, materialized, if you will, when you recognize it. The
Right.
thing that you focus on becomes reality. So what are you missing? Right? Like, how many things are you missing that actually might be more interesting or more helpful to you? So that's where practicing with connections and just being open to, well, where else could there be a connection? Yes, I think I have one here. Do I have one over there? And it's one of those
Yeah.
pathways that, don't believe everything you think, but check it out. Be curious,
Yeah.
be open. Could be.
Yeah. It's a very important thing to learn because it'll save you a lot of effort to try to recover from these mistakes, unless you need them.
Well, I think curiosity is a great way to approach
Yes.
pretty much anything. Coming back to the story I told you about the dogs that are coming.
Hmm.
Curiosity would have saved pushback, right? Somebody saying,
Right.
"Oh, that seems awfully quick. Like, what? How do you feel about that? Like, why are you doing that? Where did the idea come from?" And so on. The idea came from, I saw this thing about these dogs
Mhm.
on a trash heap, and I didn't
Right.
like where they were. But there was more to it than that, obviously. But some curiosity would have saved jumping straight to a conclusion.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's one
But the
example, but we have examples every
yeah.
day, right?
Yeah. Again, I'm trying to overthink this one too much. I was just trying to see the connection between where you're going and what we're talking about. Not that our titles have ever had to be the whole episode, but
I think you know where you're going when we talk about 2026. We've
yeah.
we've set the stage. We've talked about how it is likely to be. It's a big, big year. There's a lot going to
Yeah.
go down in 2026, and I think we are going to be, or those that are not prepared anyway, are going to be quite astonished at how 2025 was the run-up, prelude. It's not the thing. Well, it might
Yeah.
feel like a lot. It was a lot. It's been a lot. Its repercussions are going to be a lot, but it's not the biggest thing yet.
No.
So, you know where you're going, know where you're going.
Right. If you don't know where
Be
you're going,
prepared.
know where you're going. Figure it out.
Yeah, be prepared for what are you going to do with what's coming.
Right.
Spending
Sorry.
time being miserable
Yeah.
about it isn't, I wouldn't devote too much time to that because we haven't got time for that. You've got to get a lot of stuff underway. There's a lot to do.
Yeah. When you said that, the first thing that came to my mind is, listen, these are magical times coming. Be excited about the magic.
Yep. Yep.
But that's kind of how I've been feeling. Like my brain is, I've said it at the beginning of the episode, but my brain is like I want to see what comes to fruition from what we've done all through 2025, all the spells, all the works, all the things, the connections, the opening up new spaces, all me making videos and stuff. Like now I'm like, I want to see it. I'm excited to move into it, even though part of me knows, yeah, it's going to get harder, but it's like, but it's when you work out and you get
Mhm.
in really good shape and you're really good, and now you look for that harder workout,
Right. Yes. It becomes addictive, actually.
right? And so, depending on how your 2025, well, 2025 was the beginning, you're getting in shape, and now let's see how far you can go in 2026.
Right. Now's your powerlifting competition.
Yeah,
Now's the now's the place where you see if you worked all your muscles or just the mirror muscles, right?
That's right. Now you see how good your work was. Now you see the fruits of your labor for the first wave.
But you've also got more to do. So
Yeah.
there's yeah, 2026 is going to be an interesting, very interesting year. And that's such a lame word, but I don't have a better one for it because it encompasses a lot. I think challenge is going to be a word for the year as well. There's going to be a lot of challenges, like left and right, challenges to your assumptions, challenges to
Mm.
what you, in air quotes, know to be true, because no, you don't. And that goes for me too, right? The things that I
Yeah.
currently think I know to be true, I'm fairly sure I'm going to discover a lot of it isn't, and I don't know which bits. I'll find
Yeah.
out. But going in with a preparedness to be surprised.
Yeah. Be
That's what
excited
I
about
got.
it.
That's what I
Yeah.
got. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the last piece.
Yeah.
Be prepared to be
Your piece was
surprised.
the piece is what we were waiting for because me too. It was like, okay, say what we need to say on to the wait for the next thing for the next week. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
On to
and I hope the listeners are
2026.
paying yeah, and I hope the listeners are paying attention to this one, how these episodes are ending, because you're probably going to experience a lot of it in your own the things you're doing. So you might as well be aware of
Yeah.
them and be prepared to end when you need to end. Don't don't use us as an example.
Or
And
do,
keep rambling when
depending.
it's done. But anyway, yeah. So episode. So since the next episode we're recording is in the new year, Happy New Year's to everybody. Happy New Year's, Michaela.
Happy New Year, Danielle. And yeah, it's buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a ride.
Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to see if there's a tangible feeling on the stroke of midnight there on Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, I don't anticipate one for me, but I tend to go more with
me.
the moon anyway. So
Right.
yeah.
That's actually an interesting one. For those of you who can pay attention to the flow, let us know.
Yeah. What
You
works for
can
you?
email us at thinklikeawizard@gmail.com or go to the Think Like a Wizard subreddit. Let us know what you felt, what you experienced, if you bothered. That sounds like negative, but anyway. So,
I would love to know too if what the listeners looking forward to, what they're
yes.
anticipating, and what they'd like from us.
Mm, that's right.
No, I'm not saying you're going to get it, but hey, tell us and you might.
But let us know anyways.
Can't
It might show
promise,
up,
right? I don't know.
right? All right. On that note, once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time.
Till next year.
Yes, next year.